It's tough to imagine losing someone you love to dementia.
Yeah.
It's like they're there but not really there.
Right.
And you start grieving before they're actually gone.
Yeah, and it's called anticipatory grief,
Yeah.
and it can be incredibly difficult.
It is. It's like losing them twice.
Yeah.
My grandpa had dementia,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like I lost him bit by bit over several years.
Right.
He was still alive, but he wasn't really him.
Yeah.
And then when he actually passed,
Mm-hmm.
it was a whole different kind of grief. But I had already mourned so much of him.
Well, that's fascinating because it highlights the complex layers of emotion involved in anticipatory grief.
Right.
So many people struggle with feeling like their emotions are invalid,
Yeah.
but feelings like sadness, anger, confusion, even relief,
Yeah.
they're all completely normal. There's no right or wrong way to grieve.
That's so true. Because I remember feeling guilty sometimes for feeling frustrated
Mm-hmm.
or even, dare I say, relieved.
Yeah.
Like, not relieved that he was going through it,
Of course.
but relieved that maybe the struggle was ending.
Yeah.
For all of us.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
those feelings are completely understandable given the circumstances.
Yeah.
It's important to be kind to yourself
Yeah.
and allow yourself to feel whatever comes up.
Yeah.
There's no need to judge yourself for having normal human reactions to a very difficult situation.
That makes a lot of sense. So what are some ways to navigate anticipatory grief?
Well, you have to start by acknowledging those feelings.
Yeah.
Don't bottle them up.
Okay.
Talk to friends, family, a therapist, anyone you trust.
Mm-hmm.
Support groups can be amazing too.
Yeah.
You can connect with others who truly understand what you're going through
Right.
and share your experiences openly without judgment.
That feeling of not being alone can make a world of difference.
It really can.
Because honestly, sometimes those who hasn't been through it just don't get it,
Yeah.
which is fine. But finding a space where you feel seen and heard
Mm-hmm.
can be so healing.
It really can. One thing I always tell people is that self-care is vital during this time.
Okay.
It's easy to get so caught up in caring for your loved one that you forget to take care of yourself.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
you have to take care of yourself so that you can take care of them.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly.
What are some ways people can take care of themselves?
Basic things, really.
Yeah.
Make sure you're eating healthy, exercising, getting enough sleep.
Mm-hmm.
These things make a huge difference. Even doing something enjoyable for a few minutes each day can help you feel a bit more like yourself.
Yeah.
Reading, listening to music, going for a walk, whatever brings you a little bit of peace.
I think sometimes self-care can feel selfish when you're so worried about someone else.
Sure.
But you're right. It's actually the opposite.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always easy.
Right.
But it's essential for both your well-being
Right.
and your ability to provide care.
Okay, that makes sense. We've talked about acknowledging your feelings,
Yeah.
finding support, and taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But what about actually communicating with your loved one who has dementia?
Right.
I imagine that can get really hard.
It can be. One thing to keep in mind is that communication goes beyond words.
Oh, okay.
You have to learn to pay attention to their nonverbal cues,
Okay.
their facial expressions, their tone of voice, their body language. Sometimes a gentle touch or a warm smile can speak volumes when words fail.
And patience has to be a big part of that, right? Sometimes it might take them a little longer to process things,
Mm-hmm.
or they might not remember things the way they used to.
That's an important point. Patience and understanding are so important. Dementia affects their behavior and communication patterns.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their fault.
Right,
And getting frustrated won't help either of you.
right.
You're doing a great job by just being there.
That's good to remember. It makes me think about all those times I just sat with my grandpa,
Uh-huh.
even if he couldn't always follow a conversation the way he used to.
Yeah.
We'd listen to music, look at old pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Even just sitting quietly together felt meaningful.
Those moments of connection are so important.
Yeah,
They might not remember the specifics later,
right.
but they can still feel the love and care you're giving them.
Yeah,
And that's really what matters most.
it's more about that feeling of connection,
Yes.
even if the details are fuzzy.
Exactly. It's about holding on to that emotional bond no matter what.
That's so important. And as their dementia progresses,
Yes.
I imagine you might need to adapt to their changing needs.
You will think about things like modifying your home environment to make it safer,
Okay?
adjusting daily routines, or seeking professional support from doctors or dementia care specialists.
I've heard of respite care.
Yes.
What is that exactly?
Respite care is temporary care for your loved one, which allows you to take a break.
Okay.
Caring for someone with dementia can be physically and emotionally demanding.
Yeah.
And respite care gives you a chance to rest and recharge.
Right, okay.
You can find respite care services through various organizations,
Mm.
from home health agencies to adult daycare centers.
Right.
Some facilities even offer overnight stays.
Accepting help can be tough for some people.
It can.
But it's so important to remember that you're not alone in this.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to ask for help.
You don't have to do this all on your own.
Okay, so we talk about the emotional and practical sides of things.
Mm-hmm.
But what about when the time comes
Yeah.
after they're gone?
That's when a whole new wave of grief can hit.
Yeah.
And again, it's okay to feel a mix of emotions. You might feel sadness, of course,
Right.
but also relief that their suffering has ended.
Right.
And maybe even guilt for feeling that relief.
That's exactly what happened to me when my grandpa passed away.
Uh-huh.
I was so sad, but also so relieved that he wasn't struggling anymore.
Right.
I felt guilty for feeling relieved, like I should only be sad.
It's such a common feeling, though.
Yeah.
Grief is complicated, but like we said before, all of those feelings are normal, valid human responses.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself permission to feel all those things without judgment.
That makes me feel a little better. What are some things people can do to help them cope after their loved one passes away?
Creating a memory box can be a great place to start.
What goes into a memory box?
Think photos, letters, mementos,
Okay.
anything that reflects your loved one's life and personality.
Okay. That makes sense.
You can also consider planting a tree, donating to dementia research in their name, or finding other meaningful ways to keep their spirit alive.
That's a really good idea. I like the idea of keeping their memory alive in a way that feels personal and authentic.
Exactly. The most important thing to remember is that healing takes time.
Mhm.
There's no set timeline.
Right.
And everyone's journey is different.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself, seek support when you need it,
Okay.
and allow yourself to grieve in your own way.
That's great advice. There's no right or wrong way to grieve.
Right.
And it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to go through this alone.
And remember, even though this is a difficult time,
Yeah.
it's also a testament to the love and connection you share with your loved one.
Mm-hmm.
That love doesn't just disappear.
Right.
It lives on in your memories, in the lessons you learn, and in the way you choose to honor their life.
That's a really comforting thought. Even though it's painful, it's also a privilege to have loved someone so deeply that their absence leaves such a void.
It is.
It means they truly mattered
Yeah,
and that their life had meaning.
exactly. And that meaning can continue to inspire you and guide you even after they're gone.
It's amazing how our brains work, right?
It really is.
Like, how can we still feel that love so strongly?
Did you know that even though dementia affects memory,
Uh-huh.
emotions tend to stay intact much longer?
Really?
That's why those moments of connection, even if fleeting, can be so powerful for both the person with dementia and their loved ones.
Wow.
It's a reminder that the essence of who they are is still there beneath the surface of the disease.
That's really incredible, actually. So even though they might not remember our names
Right.
or specific events, they can still feel our love.
Yes. And they can still express their love for you, too.
Wow.
Even if it's in different ways than before.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a squeeze of the hand, a look of recognition, or a moment of shared laughter.
Yeah.
Those expressions of love, however small they may seem,
Mm-hmm.
are precious and should be cherished.
It makes you realize that love really is a powerful force.
It is.
Even in the face of a disease like dementia.
Absolutely.
It makes me wonder what's going on in the brain when someone has dementia.
Well, dementia is a general term for a decline in mental ability severe enough to interfere with daily life.
Okay.
It's not a single disease,
Mm-hmm.
but a group of symptoms caused by various conditions that affect the brain.
Like what?
Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia,
Okay.
but there are many others,
Okay.
such as vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, and frontotemporal dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Each type has its own unique characteristics and progression.
Okay.
What they all have in common is damage to brain cells,
Right.
which disrupts the way the brain works and leads to the cognitive decline we see in dementia.
So it's not just about memory loss.
Exactly. Dementia can affect thinking, reasoning, judgment, language, and behavior.
Wow.
It can also cause personality changes and mood swings.
Okay.
It's a very complex and challenging disease.
That's so much to take in. So what actually causes this damage to brain cells?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And scientists are still working to fully understand it.
Wow. I imagine it's pretty hard to diagnose.
It can be. There's no single test for dementia.
Okay.
So doctors rely on a combination of assessments,
Right.
including cognitive and neurological exams,
Mm-hmm.
medical history review.
Yeah.
It's often a process of elimination, ruling out other potential causes for the symptoms.
So let's someone who's diagnosed. What are the treatment options?
Well, unfortunately, there's no cure for most types of dementia.
Oh,
However, there are medications and therapies that can help manage symptoms,
okay.
slow down the progression of the disease,
Mm-hmm.
and improve quality of life for both the person with dementia and their caregivers.
Okay.
It's important to work closely with your healthcare team to develop a personalized treatment plan that meets your loved one's specific needs.
You know, when my grandpa was diagnosed, it was like this cloud hanging over our family.
I can imagine it can be a very difficult and emotional time for everyone involved.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that you're not alone in this.
Mm-hmm.
There are resources and support systems available to help you navigate the challenges of dementia,
Mm.
from diagnosis to end-of-life care.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming to think about everything,
Sure.
the emotional toll, the practical aspects of caregiving.
That's why seeking support is so crucial.
Right.
Talking to other people who have been through it can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
You can share your experiences,
Yeah.
learn coping strategies, and get practical advice.
It's like having a lifeline, right?
It is.
Knowing that you're not alone in this journey.
Exactly. And there are organizations both online and in your community
Okay.
that can provide valuable resources and support for both people with dementia and their caregivers.
So it's about finding those lifelines, reaching out for help when you need it,
Mm-hmm.
and remembering that it's okay to ask for support.
Absolutely. You don't have to go through this alone.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the emotional side of things
Yeah.
and complexities of dementia.
Right.
Well, let's talk about some practical things people could do to prepare for the future.
That's a great point. It's never too early to start thinking about legal and financial matters,
Okay.
especially when dealing with a progressive disease like dementia.
Like what specifically?
Well, one of the most important things is to have a durable power of attorney for healthcare and finances in place.
Okay.
This legal document designates someone you trust to make medical and financial decisions on your behalf
Okay.
if you become unable to do so yourself.
That makes sense. So you don't have to worry about those decisions
Exactly.
when you're already dealing with so much.
It's all about planning ahead and making sure your wishes are respected, even if you can no longer communicate them yourself.
What are some other things people should consider?
It's important to have conversations about end-of-life care offenses.
Okay.
Do you want to be resuscitated if your heart stops?
Oh, wow.
Where would you prefer to spend your final days?
Mm-hmm.
These are difficult but important conversations to have with your loved ones and your healthcare team.
Yeah, it's like taking control of the situation even when so much feels out of control.
It is. It's about making sure your voice is heard and your wishes are honored.
And you mentioned finances earlier.
Yes.
What should people be thinking about in that regard?
Well, it's important to have a plan for managing your loved one's finances as their dementia progresses.
Okay.
This might involve setting up a joint bank account, appointing a financial power of attorney,
Mm-hmm.
or exploring options for long-term care insurance.
It can all be so confusing, though,
It can.
especially when you're already dealing with the emotional stress of this situation.
You're right, it can be. That's why it's so important to seek professional advice.
Okay.
Financial advisors, elder law attorneys, and geriatric care managers can all provide guidance and support in navigating these complex issues.
It's like building a support system for yourself and your loved one.
It is.
You don't have to figure everything out on your own.
Exactly. There are people who can help you every step of the way.
I imagine these conversations can be really hard to start.
They can be, but they're essential.
Yeah.
And honestly, the earlier you start having them, the better.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to make sure your loved one's wishes are respected.
Yeah.
And that their care is aligned with their values.
What are some tips for starting these conversations?
Choose a time and place where everyone feels comfortable and relaxed.
Okay.
Frame the conversation as a way to ensure your loved one's well-being and peace of mind.
Mm.
Listen attentively to their concerns and preferences.
Yeah.
And remember, it's not a one-time conversation.
Right.
These discussions may need to happen over time as the disease progresses and needs change.
That's good advice. And it's a good reminder that even though dementia is a difficult journey, it's also an opportunity to deepen our connections with our loved ones
Absolutely.
and make the most of the time we have together.
It is.
So we talked about a lot of the practical stuff like legal documents and end-of-life care.
Right.
Super important, but it's kind of heavy, you know?
Yeah, it can be a lot.
When you're just trying to get through the day-to-day.
It's true, but those conversations are all about making sure your loved one is cared for.
Exactly. And you mentioned that it's never too early to start thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Does that mean like even before a dementia diagnosis?
Ideally, yes.
Wow, okay.
It's much easier to have those conversations when they can still understand and express what they want.
Right.
It's not always possible, of course.
Yeah.
But if you can, I'd say start early.
It makes sense to be proactive instead of waiting till things get really tough.
Absolutely. Empowering your loved one, giving them a voice in their own care.
So let's shift gears a bit.
Sure.
We talked before about the importance of communication.
Yeah.
How can we connect with our loved ones as their dementia progresses?
That's a great question. As dementia progresses, communication becomes more and more challenging.
Right.
But it's important to remember that the ability to connect emotionally
Yeah.
often remains intact even after their cognitive abilities decline.
So even if I can't remember my name or follow a conversation,
Right.
I can still connect with them emotionally.
Yes, you can. And that connection can be incredibly meaningful.
How do we do that? How do we foster that emotional connection?
Think about the things that brought you joy in the past,
Okay.
like listening to music, looking at old photos, or just holding hands and sharing a quiet moment.
Yeah.
These activities can still bring comfort even if you don't need words.
So nonverbal cues, a gentle touch, a smile, a familiar song.
Exactly, creating a sense of safety, familiarity, and love.
I remember I used to sit with my grandpa and read to him. He
Aww.
couldn't always follow the story,
Right.
but he loved hearing my voice and just being close.
That's perfect. That's what I mean, those moments of connection, those little sparks of light
Yeah.
in the darkness of the disease.
And they'll still have good days and bad days, right?
Absolutely. Their mood and their thinking can fluctuate.
Right.
So it's important to be patient and adaptable.
But it can be frustrating when you're trying to connect and they're just not having it.
It can, but remember, it's the disease talking, not them.
Okay.
Try not to take it personally.
That's hard.
Sometimes the best thing to do is just be present,
Yeah.
offer a comforting presence.
hmm
Let them know that you're there for them no matter what.
It's easy to get caught up in trying to fix things.
It is.
Like to make it better.
But sometimes the most loving thing
Yeah.
is to accept the situation and offer your unconditional love and support.
Yeah. To meet them where they are.
Exactly. A journey of adaptation and acceptance.
We talk about coping and communication strategies, but what about the caregiver's emotional well-being?
Oh, that's so important.
It can't be easy to watch someone you love go through this.
It's incredibly tough. Caregivers experience a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
Sadness, grief, frustration, exhaustion.
Right.
It's important to acknowledge those feelings and seek support.
And self-care is crucial,
It is.
but it's hard to put your own needs first when you're caring for someone else.
I understand, but remember, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
Taking care of yourself is essential, so you can be a better caregiver.
What can caregivers do?
All the things we've talked about.
Okay.
Sleep well, eat healthy foods, exercise. Find things that bring you joy and help you relax. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Friends, family support groups.
It's okay to feel all the feels.
It is.
Sad, angry, frustrated, even relieved sometimes.
There's no right or wrong way to feel.
Yeah.
Grief is complex and individual. There's no shame in getting support.
So let's talk more about grief.
Okay.
We talked about anticipatory grief.
Right, while they're still alive.
Yeah. But what about after they pass away? How's that different?
Well, they're similar in some ways, but also different.
Okay.
Anticipatory grief is ambiguous and uncertain.
Okay.
You're grieving losses that are happening and anticipating ones to come.
It's like this in-between space. You're always adjusting to the changes,
Exactly.
trying to figure out what's happening.
And then when they pass away, you're hit with new challenges. The grief can feel stronger and more overwhelming.
Right.
And you're dealing with practical things like funeral arrangements.
Wow, it's like a whole new wave of grief.
Exactly. It's important to allow yourself to grieve in your own way.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way.
Right.
Some people like rituals and traditions. Some people prefer to grieve privately.
I found talking about my grandpa helped back.
Yeah.
Sharing stories and laughing at the funny memories.
That's great.
And crying when I needed to.
It's all a way to honor him and keep his memory alive.
Exactly. It felt good to find healthy ways to process it.
Exactly. Talking to a therapist, joining a support group, writing, expressing yourself creatively.
Yeah.
It can all help you heal and move forward.
What advice would you give to someone who has just lost someone to dementia?
Be kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to feel whatever you're feeling.
Okay.
Don't rush the process.
Mm-hmm.
Surround yourself with support.
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask for help.
It's so isolating, but knowing you have people you can turn to,
It makes all the difference.
and even though this is a hard time,
It is.
it's a testament to the love and connection you share.
Exactly. That love doesn't just disappear.
Yeah.
It lives on in your memories, in the lessons, and the way you choose to honor their life.
It's comforting to remember that Even though death separates us physically,
Yeah,
the bonds we make last a lifetime.
they do, and they continue to shape us long after they're gone.
It's like carrying a piece of them with you.
It is, and it can bring you comfort, inspiration, and strength.
Yeah, it really is amazing how, even years later,
Yeah,
you can still feel so connected.
absolutely. And speaking of staying connected,
Yeah,
I wanted to mention one more thing
okay.
that might be helpful for you
Yeah.
as you navigate this grief journey.
What's that?
Have you ever thought about creating a memory box?
I've heard of them,
Yeah.
but I'm not really sure what they are.
It's simple but powerful.
Okay,
You gather photos, letters, mementos,
okay,
anything that represents their life and personality,
okay.
and put it all in a special box.
So it's like a physical representation of their story.
Exactly. It can be really therapeutic
Okay.
for the person with dementia and their loved ones.
Yeah.
For someone with dementia, looking through those things can
Mhm.
spark conversation,
Mm-hmm.
trigger memories, provide a sense of connection and continuity.
Yeah.
And for their loved ones, it's a way to honor their memory
Right.
and keep their spirit alive.
That makes it. It's like creating a legacy that
Yeah.
you can hold on to.
And you can go back to it and revisit those memories whenever you need to feel close to them, even after they're gone.
That's a really good idea. My grandpa loved woodworking.
Oh,
He made me this little box when I was a kid.
that's curved.
Maybe I could use that.
Yeah, you can personalize it,
Yeah.
decorate it, make it your own. Add to it over time.
Mm.
Whenever you find something that reminds you of them, put it in there.
I love that. It's like a living tribute to them. And then you can share it with future generations.
Exactly.
Kids, grandkids, great-grandkids who never got to meet them.
It's a way to pass on their story, their values, their love.
I think that's a perfect place to end.
Yeah.
Creating something good out of loss
Mm-hmm.
reminds us that even though death separates us physically,
Yeah.
the love and memories can last a lifetime.
And those memories, they have the power to heal,
Yeah.
to comfort and inspire.
To anyone listening who is grieving the loss of a loved one to dementia,
Yeah,
you are not alone.
you're not.
There is support and hope,
Absolutely.
and beauty can be found even in the midst of loss.
Take care of yourself. Cherish the moments you have.
Yes.
Remember that love endures even when facing goodbye.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back next time with another thought-provoking exploration of a topic that matters.